Good morning, children.
Good morning, ma'am.
Hope you're
Morning, ma'am.
remembering. Hope you're remembering the topics we covered last day. We learned about different types of pollination, different agents of pollination, and we started with outbreeding devices. And I told you I'll be repeating outbreeding devices again in today's class. So before we start with outbreeding devices, quickly tell me which are the three types of pollination. Just the names. Tanya, name the three modes of pollination.
Autogamy, geitonogamy, synogamy.
Okay. What is xenogamy, Anna?
The xenogamy when
Transfer of
transfer of pollen
grains.
pollen grains from anther of one plant to the stigma of other plant.
Once again, transfer of pollen grains from the anther of
From the anther to the stigma of the one plant to the other plant.
Or else a little more clearly you can say the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of a flower to the stigma of another flower of a different plant of the same kind. That is xenogamy. Then we learned about the adaptations shown by different flowers in order to suit their pollinating agent. We learned about the different adaptations shown by these flowers. Give me the adaptations shown by anemophilous flowers or wind pollinated flowers. Punya, give me any two adaptations.
They produce a large amount of pollen grain.
One more.
The stigma is large and feathery in some.
What for? What for they are feathery and
Trapping the
long?
pollen grain.
For trapping the pollen grains. Two adaptations shown by hydrophilous flowers. Meenakshi? What about the pollen grains? Any speciality for them? Mehak?
Ma'am, I was absent for the last class.
That is not at all an excuse. Here afterwards, don't tell me that I couldn't join or I was not. It is your duty to find out from your friends what was covered and go through those topics. Gayatri?
Pollen grains are covered with the miscellaneous
Potting. What for?
get wet.
To prevent it from getting wet. And the adaptations shown by other plants, like for example in Vallisneria. Steffi, tell me the adaptations shown by the flowers of Vallisneria to promote pollination.
The stalk of the female flower reaches the surface of the water.
How come it's very?
Long stalk.
It's long stalk, so it can reach the surface and then
it will get pollinated there.
the pollen grains will be released from the male flower, which will be carried by the water currents to the stigma of the female flower, resulting in pollination. And we started with outbreeding devices. I'll be explaining each one in detail, but just tell me, just list out those 4 outbreeding devices. Michael, just list them.
Avoiding synchronization.
Avoiding synchronization.
Arrangement of anther and stigma at different positions.
Arrangement of stigma and anther at different positions. Then
self-compatibility.
Self-incompatibility. And last one, production of unisexual flowers. So one by one, already we had discussed, but still I'll be repeating these points once again. Just a minute. Hermaphrodite flowers can undergo self-pollination. I told you when the same flower is having both male and female reproductive parts, there are chances that self-pollination takes place. But continuously, when self-pollination takes place for several generations, it can lead to inbreeding depression. Inbreeding depression can lead to reduction in its productivity. So plants have some techniques by means of which it will reduce inbreeding depression and promote cross pollination. You know that when cross pollination is taking place, chances of developing variations are more, and that is more desirable. So that is why plants have some techniques or methods by means of which they can ensure cross pollination. So we will see the different outbreeding devices. Already Michael, he has listed out the different outbreeding devices. So let us start with the first one, avoiding synchronization. So in case of, when we discussed about autogamy, I told you that those flowers which carry out self-pollination, there should be a synchronization between the release of pollen and receptivity of stigma. If both these events take place simultaneously, self-pollination can be ensured. But here we are discussing about outbreeding devices, which will prevent self-pollination and promote cross-pollination. So in order to facilitate cross-pollination, the plants avoid synchronization between stigma receptivity and pollen release. Both will not take place at the same time. One of the events will be taking place first, which will be followed by the other event. So when it happens like that, self-pollination will not take place. The pollen is released before the stigma becomes receptive, or stigma becomes receptive before the release of pollen. So both the events, the receptivity of the stigma and release of pollen, will not take place at the same time. If both are taking place simultaneously, it will promote self-pollination. So plants, these flowers, or they are having some devices by means of which the synchronization is avoided to promote cross-pollination. It helps in preventing autogamy. Now moving on to the second technique, arrangement of anther and stigma at different locations. If anther and stigma, this condition also we had discussed when we were learning about autogamy. To ensure autogamy, anther and stigma should be closely located. So chances for self-pollination will be more. But for avoiding self-pollination and promoting cross-pollination, anther and stigma, it will be placed at different locations. Different locations means within the same flower, not closely lined, but a little apart from each other, so that when the anther dehisces, the pollen will not fall on the stigma. So that also will help in preventing autogamy. Now the third method, self-incompatibility. You know that when pollen grains fall on the stigma, it can either be rejected or it can be germinated. So that depends upon whether the stigma is accepting it or rejecting it. Stigma, they will accept compatible pollen grains and promote germination of this pollen and pollen tube formation. But if it is not compatible, like some other species, pollen grains of flowers belonging to some other species can also land on the stigma. But stigma, there are some chemicals by means of which they can recognize compatible and incompatible pollen grains. So that is a normal procedure. But in order to promote cross-pollination and to prevent self-pollination, some of these flowers, they develop a genetic mechanism. You call it as self-incompatibility. Means its own pollen will not become compatible. Even if the pollen grains of the same flower is falling on the stigma of the same flower under normal conditions, since it belongs to the same species, same flower, same plant, it should happen. Means pollination should happen, pollen germination should take place, but they develop a genetic mechanism known as self-incompatibility. So when its own pollen falls on the stigma, stigma will not, or it will not be permitted to germinate, or its pollen tube formation will be prevented. So as a result, what will happen? Self-pollination cannot take place. It's a genetic mechanism to prevent self-pollen. Self-pollen means pollen from the, either from the same flower or from another flowers of the same plant. Both are genetically self-pollination. So its own pollen, if it falls on its stigma, fertilization or that process of pollination will not get completed, because if pollination is successful, it should lead to fertilization. And fertilization is prevented by inhibiting the germination of the pollen and pollen tube formation. Okay, this also will prevent autogamy. Any doubt in these 3 points? Any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay, now moving on to the 4th and the last outbreeding device, production of unisexual flowers. And this can take place in 2 ways. Like, you know that in hermaphrodite or in bisexual flowers, the same flower will be having male and female reproductive parts, pistil as well as stamen. But in unisexual flowers, either they will have the male reproductive part, stamens, or they will have the female reproductive part, pistil. So you can call those flowers as male and female flowers, or staminate and pistillate flowers. And production of unisexual flowers can take place on the same plant or on different plants. And examples given here are maize, castor, and papaya. In maize and castor, same plant will have 2 types of flowers, male flowers and female flowers. Okay, within the same plant, male and female flowers will be present, but these are unisexual flowers. Each flower will have either stamen or pistil, not both. But these 2 types of flowers are present on the same plant. Both male and female flowers will be present on the same plant. In such a case, autogamy can be prevented, because autogamy means the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. That will not happen, because a single flower is having only male, either male or female reproductive part. So it is assured that no autogamy will take place. But geitonogamy cannot be prevented. Geitonogamy means transfer of pollen grains from the anther of a flower to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. Since male and female flowers are found on the same plant, geitonogamy might take place. Okay, and that is also, as we already discussed, genetically autogamy or genetically self-pollination. So that anyhow, by the production of unisexual flowers on the same plant, you cannot avoid. Autogamy can be avoided, but not geitonogamy. But in case of papaya tree, they have 2 types of trees. In male tree, only male flowers, and in female, only female flowers will be there. So definitely you can prevent autogamy as well as geitonogamy, and it will promote cross-pollination. Hope you have followed. In male, if male and female flowers are present on the same plant, monoecious plant means both male and female flowers are present on the same plant, as in the case of castor and maize, we can prevent autogamy. It will help in preventing autogamy, as the same flower is not having both the reproductive parts, but geitonogamy cannot be prevented. Whereas in dioecious plants means male and female flowers are produced on different plants. Example, papaya. There we can successfully avoid both autogamy and geitonogamy. Okay. So with that, we have completed the outbreeding devices. If you can quickly summarize, we'll proceed to the next topic. Why many? Yes.
I had a doubt. For the first 3 processes, geitonogamy cannot be avoided, right? So isn't that self-pollination? But that will also cause inbreeding depression, right?
But to certain extent, autogamy can be prevented. First one, what we said is avoiding synchronization. So there also autogamy can be prevented, but geitonogamy cannot be prevented. So that also can lead, but see, even siblings of the same parent, some differences, some variations will be there. So that can be promoted. Some variations can be promoted, but at the same time, autogamy can be prevented. And in the last point, what we said, Punya, I'll come to your doubt. What I said just now. So the last one, producing unisexual flowers on two different plants, cross-pollination can be ensured. In all the other cases, autogamy can be prevented. Self-pollination can be prevented, but geitonogamy might take place. Even though geitonogamy is genetically self-pollination, functionally it is cross-pollination. Two different flowers are involved anyhow. So that is better than autogamy in promoting variation.
So
Okay.
that does not cause inbreeding depression.
That also can lead, definitely cross-pollination only will be, what to say, if you compare with the geitonogamy and what to say, cross-pollination, definitely the xenogamy or cross-pollination is better for avoiding inbreeding depression. But even plants have some devices to reduce autogamy, and there also geitonogamy may take place, but at the same time, it will promote cross-pollination also. Because from that, within the same flower, when it is not happening, within the same flower, when it is not happening, the pollen grains can come from the same plant or even from a different plant. So it is promoting cross-pollination. See, first case, what we said is avoiding synchronization. So its own pollen definitely will not fall on its own stigma. But at the same time, it can fall, or these pollen grains from another flower of the same plant can reach there. At the same time, there is a possibility that cross-pollination also take place. It is open to both, but definitely autogamy is avoided. Chances are there. Okay. So when,
Okay, ma'am.
see, just imagine that autogamy is taking place, then no chance at all for cross-pollination. So within that flower, it is open to both, either geitonogamy or xenogamy. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
One more doubt. Punya, cleistogamous flowers are produced in those plants where two types of flowers are produced. So those plants, they have both techniques, cleistogamy and chasmogamy, means they produce chasmogamous flowers and cleistogamous flowers. Even though inbreeding depression, so the same plant as such won't be affected because two types of flowers are there. So in order to compensate for that, they have chasmogamous flowers. Punya, I think you got the point. Punya, I think her video is stuck when you understood, no? You understood what I said? You said that cleistogamous flowers
Yes, ma'am.
might undergo inbreeding depression since they are undergoing only autogamy. What you said is correct. In cleistogamous flowers, only autogamy takes place. But where these cleistogamous flowers are produced, in such plants, we have yet another type of flowers, chasmogamous. So if you take that plant as a whole, inbreeding depression won't happen. Okay, Punya.
Okay, ma'am.
Chasmogamous
Yes,
flowers will act as a lifesaver. So they will promote variations. Okay. So we'll proceed to any doubts, children? Any doubts? I stopped actually to ask questions. See, hearing your doubts, I forgot about that and I was about to proceed to the next topic. Quickly tell me the different outbreeding devices. We'll start with Meenakshi. Explain any one point.
Avoiding synchronization.
Avoiding synchronization. Explain it.
Ma'am, either the pollen is released before the stigma
Becomes receptive.
or the stigma becomes receptive much before the pollen is released.
Okay, good. Then second point, Steffi.
Arrangement of stigma and anther not close to each other.
So they will be placed at different locations. So that also will help in preventing autogamy. Whether
Self-incompatibility.
It
It
means
is a
what?
It is a genetic mechanism to prevent self-pollen from fertilization, inhibiting.
By inhibiting, you're reading. Yes. Continue.
By inhibiting pollen germination and pollen tube growth in the stick.
Now without looking. Now close. You understood the concept, no? Now you close the book and tell me. Self-incompatibility. You are saying about self-incompatibility. Start.
It is genetic mechanism.
By which? You read once again. Read.
It is
Continue.
It is genetic mechanism for preventing self-pollen from by inhibiting.
From what?
From
Preventing it from fertilization. How?
By inhibiting pollen germination and pollen tube growth in the stick.
Okay. Next point, Donna.
Production of unisexual flowers in monoecious plants where male and female flowers are present on the same plant.
There what will happen? What you can avoid?
It prevents autogamy, but genogamy cannot be prevented.
Good.
And
then
in dioecious plants where male and female flowers are present on different parts.
Different
plants. Different plants. Both autogamy and genogamy are prevented.
Okay. And it will facilitate cross-pollination. Hope you have no doubts. Nevin, Rijaz, Anthony, Punya. All are absent today. Lydia is there? Lydia? No. And one more. Help me out. Evelyn, I think she has got some connectivity problem in between. She's joining. So Evelyn and Lydia. Next topic is pollen pistil interaction. You know, pistil consists of Rijaz. Pistil consists of three main parts.
Stigma, style and
ovary. So pollen pistil interaction. When pollen lands on stigma, what are the changes happening? So we'll be discussing about that. So pistil has got three parts. Pistil is the female reproductive part of a flower. It has got three parts: stigma, style, ovary. Stigma is the landing platform for pollen grains and it is slightly sticky also. We already discussed about stigma earlier. Stigma can be either branched or unbranched. Pollen pistil interaction is a process in which pistil recognizes compatible or incompatible pollen through the chemical components produced by them. So any pollen, if it falls on a particular stigma of a particular flower, it cannot germinate and form a pollen tube. Only if it is compatible. Any pollen cannot be recognized by pollen from any other plant species or flowers belonging to other plant species will not be recognized by the pistil. So there are some mechanisms, some chemicals are produced, some chemical components are there produced by the pistil with the help of which it can recognize compatible and incompatible pollen. If it is incompatible, it will be rejected. If it is compatible, it will germinate, pollen tube will be formed, and through the pollen tube, male gametes will be transferred, resulting in fertilization. So once again, pollen pistil interaction is a process by which pistil recognizes compatible and incompatible pollen. How? Through the chemical components produced by them. It's a dynamic process involving pollen recognition followed by pollen promotion or inhibition. So it's a dynamic process where the pollen will be recognized first by the pistil, and upon recognizing, if compatible, it will be promoted, it will be permitted to grow, and if incompatible, it will be rejected or inhibited, means the growth will be inhibited. So once again, pollen pistil interaction is the process by which pistil recognizes compatible or incompatible pollen through the chemical components produced by them, and it's a dynamic process which will start with the recognition of pollen, and it will be followed by either pollen promotion or inhibition of pollen. Promotion in the sense it will be allowed to germinate and form a pollen tube. Inhibition means it will be rejected. Neither it can germinate or form a pollen tube. If the pollen is compatible, means right type, matching, the pollen is belonging to related species, the pistil accepts it and promotes post-pollination events. So if it is compatible, if it is belonging to the same flower or another flower of the same plant, or flower of a plant belonging to the same or related species, it will accept it and it will carry out or promote post-pollination events. Pollination means transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. Now their pollination is completed. Then the post-pollination events means germination of pollen, formation of pollen tube, etc. Pollen grain germinates on the stigma. As you can see in the figure, you can see pollen grain in different stages. And some not germinated, some have already germinated, and a small pollen tube you can find. Here you can see it's not germinated. Here you can find a small pollen tube. Here a little more longer, and another one, it has already reached the ovule. So pollen grain germinates on the stigma and it will produce a pollen tube through one of the germ pores. What are germ pores? We have learned it. So before we proceed, what are the two layers found in a pollen grain? The two protective layers. What do you call them? Gayatri? No. Pollen, not ovule.
Oh, sorry.
Which are those two layers? Gayatri?
Exon. Exon.
Within 1 or 2 days, you've forgotten. Steffi, which are those two layers covering pollen grains?
Exine and intine.
Exine and intine. And what is the difference in the material with which they are made of? Mehek. Exine is made of? This cannot be permitted, children. Malavika?
Exine is made of sporopollenin.
And intine?
Cellulose and pectin.
Pectin. This topic was covered when? The beginning of the week, no? This week only, na? Yes or no? How fast you're forgetting from this? What I understood is you're not learning your daily lessons. Yes, no, Nidhi? You knew the answer? You knew this answer? No. Exine is made of sporopollenin and intine is made of cellulose and pectin. What is special about sporopollenin? I'm not going to spare you. Mehek, do you remember what is special about sporopollenin? Just check the textbook. You find out. Rijaz, what is special? I told you when this topic was taken, I told it's very, very important. Repeatedly questions are asked from that particular topic. Rijaz, tell me what is special about sporopollenin?
They can withstand high temperature.
Only high temperature.
Enzymes.
Then
Acids and
alkalis. It's a highly resistant material. And what are germ pores? Where do you find germ pores in a pollen grain? Naureen, where do you find germ pores in a pollen grain?
Exine has some apertures called
Ah.
germ.
Exine doesn't form a continuous layer. There'll be some gaps. And these gaps or these openings are known as germ pores. What is the significance of germ pores? Now you might have understood. It is through the germ pores that the pollen tube germinates. If these pores are not there, it is covered entirely by exine. As I told you, exine is a very resistant material. So it's not that easy for the pollen tube to germinate through these thick layer. So in order to facilitate the germination and growth of pollen tube, some openings are there or some gaps are there in the exine layer through where pollen tube can germinate. Those pores or those openings are known as germ pores. Pollen grain germinates on the stigma and they produce a pollen tube through one of the germ pores. The contents of the pollen grain move into the pollen tube. You know that there are some substances, some contents are there. You know about the cells present inside a pollen grain. So the contents of the pollen grain, once the pollen germinates and forms a pollen tube, the contents present in the pollen grain will be transferred to the tube. And through the tube, these contents will reach the ovule and finally it will enter the embryo sac. Pollen tube grows through the tissues of stigma and style, reaches the ovary and enters the ovule. See here, you can see the pollen tube. Let me take another color. Okay. Here you can see the pollen tube. Pollen grain has germinated and pollen tube has been formed. So whatever contents were there inside the pollen will be transferred to the pollen tube. And this pollen tube carrying the contents, it will grow through the stigma, then style, ovary, finally it will enter the ovule. If the pollen is incompatible, I think you understood what happens if the pollen is compatible. See once again, if the pollen is compatible, pistil will accept it and it will promote post-pollination events. Pollen will germinate, pollen tube will be formed through one of the openings known as germ pores present in the exine layer. And the contents of the pollen will be transferred to the pollen tube and the pollen tube will grow through the stigma, style and reaches the ovary, enters the ovule. And inside the ovule, what is there, children? Where is the egg cell present?
Micropylar region.
Of what?
Of the
Embryo
ovule.
cell.
Inside the ovule, there is embryo sac. It is inside the embryo sac that the female gamete is present. Now, if the pollen is incompatible, wrong type, the pistil will reject it by preventing the germination of pollen or the pollen tube formation. So, if it is incompatible, the pollen cannot germinate or it cannot form pollen tube. Okay, have you understood those 2 points? What is pollen pistil interaction? Any point, any lines or slide, if you want to see, let me know. You should know what is meant by pollen pistil interaction. What happens if the pollen is compatible? And if pollen is incompatible, what happens? If that much is clear, I'll proceed. No, hope you have no doubts. Now,
Ma'am,
yes.
can you repeat the meaning of incompatible?
Incompatible means, see, suppose on a particular flower, pollen grains from some other species are falling on it. It cannot, or cross breeding or artificially, definitely farmers do. But naturally, this will not happen. If pollen from some other species are falling on the flower of a particular species, there the pollen will not germinate. You wanted to know the meaning of incompatible, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Not matching. So if it has to germinate, it should be a related plant, related type of plant. Only then the germination can take place. If the pollen grains, by wind or by some means, entirely different pollen grains can land on the stigma, may or may not. So in such a case, the pistil can recognize this is not matching or this is not compatible. So this cannot be germinated here and it will be prevented. Any pollen cannot germinate on the stigma. So it should be that pollen and stigma, it should be matching. It should be belonging to, or it should come from plants of the same kind. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we learned about 2-celled and 3-celled stage of pollen grains. Are you remembering? 2-celled and 3-celled stage of pollen grains? Malavika, tell me which are the 2 cells found in the 2-celled stage of pollen grain?
Vegetative cell and generative.
Vegetative cell and generative cell. So some of the pollen grains will be shed in the 2-celled stage. Whereas in some other cases, in some other plants, the pollen grain will be shed in the 3-celled stage. We already discussed. So tell me what is meant by this 3-celled stage, or what makes up these 3 cells? Punya, what makes up these 3 cells?
The large vegetative cell and 2 male gametes from the generative cell.
The vegetative cell will be there and the generative cell will divide and form 2. It will divide and form 2. Yes, Punya, what they form? Generative cell forms 2. You
Male
said
gametes.
male gametes. So altogether 3, 2 male gametes plus vegetative cell, then it will be 3-celled stage. And in more than 60% of the angiosperms, as I told you, the pollen grains will be shed in the 2-celled stage, and the remaining flowers, it will be shed at the 3-celled stage. The difference between these two is that, the main difference is that in 2-celled stage, the formation of male gametes from the generative cell will not take place at the time of release. It will take place during pollen tube formation. But in case of 3-celled stage, the generative cell divides and forms 2 male gametes before the release of pollen. Any doubt means you can clarify. In some plants, pollen grains are shed at the 2-celled stage. Means it will have a vegetative cell and a generative cell. Hope you are remembering the features of vegetative and generative cells. In such plants, the generative cell, as you can see in the figure, the generative cell divides and forms 2 male gametes during the growth of the pollen tube. Not at the time of release. When the pollen is being released, at that time it will have only 2 cells, vegetative cell and generative cell. But once the pollen has got germinated and the pollen tube is being formed, that time the division of generative cell to form 2 male gametes will take place. Okay, and here you can see generative, the nucleus of the generative cell. Tube nucleus means the nucleus of the vegetative cell. And then here you can see it will divide and forms 2 sperm nuclei, 2 male gametes are being formed, and this takes place during the pollen tube formation. Those pollen grains which are shed in the 3-celled stage, there the division of the generative cell to form 2 male gametes will take place before the release of pollen. But in more than 60% of the angiosperms, pollen will be released at the 2-celled stage with a vegetative cell and generative cell. And once the pollen gets germinated and pollen tube formation takes place, at that time only the division of the generative cell to form 2 male gametes take place. Okay? Children, is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
In plants which shed pollen in the three-celled stage, pollen tubes will carry two male gametes from the beginning, because when it is being released at that time also, it is having that two male gametes plus one vegetative cell. Pollen tube reaches the ovary. Pollen tube reaches the ovary. Then inside the ovary, ovule is there, enters the ovule through the micropylar region that already we learned. Ovule, the pollen tube will reach the ovule present inside the ovary, and it makes an entry into the ovule through the micropylar end. And we also learned about some specialized cells. What forms the egg apparatus, children? Which are the different cells that form the egg apparatus?
Two synergids and one.
Two synergids and one female gamete. Where are they located? At which pole?
Micropylar.
Micropylar end. So it will enter the synergids first. It will come in contact with the synergid, and synergids are provided with what?
Filiform apparatus.
Filiform apparatus. What is the role of filiform apparatus?
Guide the pollen.
To guide the pollen tube into the ovule or into the synergid. The filiform apparatus present at the micropylar part of synergids will guide the entry of pollen tube. Clear? Any slide or any point you need clarification? No.
Ma'am, can you just repeat this slide?
This one. The first statement, I think you know, two-celled and three-celled, no doubt, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, once the pollen tube, you know that it gets germinated, forms pollen tube and grows through the stigma, style, and finally it will reach the ovary. And inside the ovary, ovule. So, through the micropylar end of the ovule, the pollen tube will enter, and there the filiform apparatus is present at the micropylar end, and these filiform apparatus will help in guiding the pollen tube to enter into the synergids. And once they have entered the synergids, these male gametes will be distributed. All that we will learn. Two fusions, double fertilization will take place. And till then, what is happening? I think you have understood. Yes, Nandana?
Yes, ma'am.
Stigma, style, ovary, then stigma, the pollen tube moves through the stigma or grows through the stigma, style, ovary, then it enters the ovule through the micropylar end. And at the micropylar end, we have the egg apparatus with synergids, two synergids and one female gamete. Synergids have filiform apparatus, so that will help in guiding the pollen tube to enter the synergids. Once it has entered the synergids, from there the male gametes will get distributed. That we will learn next class. Okay, quickly summarize pollen pistil interaction. What is meant by pollen pistil interaction? Children, you are not permitted to turn your videos off. I'm specially making a note of those children also. Yes, continue. Who will start? Sania, what is pollen pistil interaction?
It is a process in which a pistil recognizes compatible or incompatible pollen grains to some chemical conditions present in it.
Okay. If the pollen is incompatible, what will happen? Naureen, if the pollen is not compatible, what will happen?
Inhibition of pollen will take place.
Inhibition of what will, which all events?
The germination of pollen and the pollen tube.
Either the pollen won't be germinated, and in case if it is germinating, the pollen tube formation will not happen. Okay. Then, if the pollen is compatible, if it is compatible, if it is matching,
the pistil accepts it and promotes post-fertilization, post-pollination events.
What are the events? Post-pollination events?
Pollen germination.
And pollen tube formation. What is the role of filiform apparatus? Mehek, what is the role of filiform apparatus? Where is it found, Mehek? Where do you find filiform apparatus? Steffi?
It guides the pollen tube to the synergids.
It will help in guiding the pollen tube to the synergids. Mehak, next class, Monday when we start, you will be summarizing the topics what we covered today and then we'll proceed. Agreed? Okay. So just briefly summarize all the points we covered today and any doubts you can contact me. So no other doubts, no children? No other doubts? And so thank you children. Meet you next class. Come prepared.